The state of Illinois will do away with cash bail entirely in January 2023 as part of new legislation. According to NBC Chicago, under the Safety Act signed earlier this year, detention only shall be imposed when it is determined the defendant poses a specific, real, and present threat to a person or has high likelihood of willful flight. This does not apply to defendants who are charged with violent crimes, such as first-degree murder and criminal sexual assault. They will still face pretrial detention.
Illinois Democrats acknowledged tweaks could be made to the language of the Safety Act after the legislation was attacked on social media as the purge law. Governor Pritzker blamed public outcry on people misrepresenting the law. So what should I think about this? You're the expert, Olayemi.
Listen, this is actually pretty modest bill reform, and something I want to point out that you don't hear a lot of coverage of. Whenever you see places like New York City or Chicago or LA want to do bail reform, it's this immediate attack, this completely leftist radical idea when you want to get rid of cash bail. But Republican Governor Christie got rid of cash bail in its entirety in New Jersey in 2014, and it has been wildly successful and did not receive the same kind of fanfare. And actually, this is positive for the reasons that people don't think about. Constantly, when people talk about bail, it's a public safety thing. They always respond, oh, we need to be safe. These people are so dangerous. First of all, if you look at places like New York City and New Jersey, places that have already started getting rid of cash bail and implementing bail reform, it has not changed the numbers of rearrest a while out. So that's first and foremost. But second, the legal purpose of bail is to make sure somebody returns to court. That's it. There isn't a public safety aspect or component. What it is the court explores, do I think this, I'm going to set cash bail because somehow we have made this connection that money has a relation on whether or not you return to court. And that's just not true. The vast majority of the people in the criminal system live well beneath the poverty line. It turns out actually most people arrested in our criminal system made less than $12,000 annually pre-arrest. So I want us to have an understanding of how poor the people are with this system. But in Chicago, what they're going to do now is instead of just setting cash bail, people can still be detained pre-trial. That's an important point. They think this is just a free-for-all, but no. Violent crime, felonies, murder, all the things you see people sensationalizing about this purge law that doesn't exist online, all of those things will still make you eligible.
Why are people calling it the purge law?
Because that is the propaganda. That is before any time before bail reform goes into effect, we have to deal with this. The same thing we saw in New York City, where before it even starts, they've already started attacking it. The police departments come out and blame it for crime spikes that haven't happened. They say they can't arrest people because of this bail reform, and they fearmonger the public about it. So what happens is once the public gets so outraged by it, and they're like, the purge, they think people can't be arrested, because the purge literally means crime for the next 24 hours, crime is a free-for-all.
I get it.
Right? So when people do that, that allows for rollback. So before it even goes into place, you get rollback. So what happened in New York City, we got bail reform at the top of 2020, January. Then they did the same thing in the media, and then they rolled it back months later.
So what stops law enforcement or the court system from detaining people when we see these videos of crazy people stabbing or beating people on the streets of New York, and we find out that, they've been arrested a bunch of times, they've been in and out a bunch of times, but they're charged with something, but they're out right now. Why are they not why are those people, when there's video evidence of them beating somebody's head in, why are they not detained?
Well, first of all, we live in a country where you are entitled to a trial, you're entitled to have evidence presented against you, you're also entitled to have defenses and justifications like mental illness, insanity, all these are things that you're allowed to present. Our cash bail system, pretrial detention, is not supposed to be used to bypass that entire process.
No, I get that.
Right? So that's one. Two, when it comes to, they sensationalize cases with homeless people and mentally ill people or people with large rap sheets. Let me tell you what that looks like in application as a public defender. If you arraign somebody for these usually mentally ill people, homeless people that are targeted and arrested regularly, what happens is at arraignments, they say to you, because your client's homeless or whatever it is, they want to put them in jail just for that reason. They use that as a reason to set bail on them. But they will say to them, hey, we're going to set bail on you, or pleaded to charge. You could plead to charge now when you say time served. And so this person gets out because they took the charge, they took the conviction, even though otherwise they could have gone to trial. There probably wouldn't have been evidence against them. There's a long process. But instead, they take it so that they could be free. Now you have one criminal conviction. Now you're home. They arrest you again for something petty, the same thing, and they keep doing that. So the next thing you know, you have homeless people addicted to drugs, people mentally ill, and all these things that have these large criminal rap sheets that are just for stupid, petty, trivial offenses. They never got their day in court. And
it's not always trivial offenses.
It's often, as somebody who represents them, yes, I've represented over 1,000 people, and I can't find you this raving lunatic with these long rap sheets. That's what it is. When you see a long criminal rap sheet like that, it's evidence of something else. And also, I want to say this. this recidivism and what we point to, whenever we talk about recidivism or people who have been rearrested or people who are in and out of the criminal system, we use that as an attack on people who are opponents of our criminal system. And that doesn't make sense. If we have a system in place, the only system we have in place for addressing crime and stopping crime and preventing crime is our criminal system we have now with incarceration and mass incarceration. And you're saying to me now, all these people that you peddle in and out of the system are continuing to do the same things, all of the issues, all of the crime, it's not being alleviated in any way. This is evidence of the system not working effectively to address those things.
Well, I mean, some people would say it's evidence of the system not locking enough people up, right? If they're out and they're engaged in more criminal behavior, then we don't have enough incarceration, right? That's what some people will say. If you have people on the streets who are not just crazy, but like actively stabbing people and attacking people, and I mean, it happens. We see the videos.
Yes, incidents of something is the majority of things. This is just the truth. There are over 2 million people that are incarcerated in America. Yeah. The majority, over 80% of cases, criminal cases, over 80% nationwide are misdemeanors, traffic offenses, and nonviolent crime. That's just the truth. Yeah. So taking these outliers and incidents of mental illness or these things and using that as justification to have this expansive prison system and mass incarceration just doesn't support that. But one, and two, I also want to say this. Consistently, even within our conversation, even within the media, what they do, they acknowledge that these people are mentally unwell. We're not pretending like these are people that are fully sane in their faculties or have the resources. No, we're acknowledging that these are people that are unwell. These are the people that are least resourced by our society and our community. But yet we keep advocating, instead of addressing their mental health issues or why these people on the street or why they don't have the resources to get the care that they need so that they don't act like this. We keep just saying throw incarceration at it. Oh, just throw them away, throw them in jail.
Well, I've had this debate on the show with other guests, and I'll say, okay, they're mentally unwell. Sure, they need to take antipsychotic medicine and they need to be put in a facility until they are no longer crazy and no longer drug addicted. But that doesn't need to be prison. I'm not saying it needs to be prison, but they need to be somewhere other than the street. And and then I get a lot of resistance when I start talking about that.
So then what do you say to the fact that a person with mental health issues in America is three to four times more likely to end up in jail or prison at some point in time in their life, right? We have over 30% of people that are currently incarcerated are struggling with not just mental health issues, what is diagnosed as serious mental health issues. They don't get these resources. They don't get this help.
I see them on the streets here and in New York.
Exactly. We are using, instead of putting money and resources and energy into actually having an infrastructure for helping people with mental health issues and dealing with them in that way, instead we keep using prison and mass incarceration. Let me just say this, that only exacerbates it. If you take somebody that doesn't have resources, you take somebody that's mentally unwell, you take somebody that's struggling, you're taking somebody that's going to respond to something with violence, and then you put them in an environment where you would literally force them to be around violence, to fight, to defend for themselves, to be exposed to sexual assault, to be exposed to rape, to be exposed to solitary confinement, to be exposed to trauma. What do you think happens to this person you've already diagnosed as crazy or a problem or a danger to us? Because they're not going to stay. This is something we need to take into consideration. They don't stay there. All right, people have to, you can't just, every little thing, you can't just lock people up for the rest of their lives, the entire country, 2 million people, everybody that has a mental health issue, you cannot just lock them away and put them away forever. So they go back to the community. And when they go back to the community with these exacerbated problems, what then?
I just don't accept that leaving them on the street is the humane thing.
Okay, so what do you want to do?
Well, I said I want to put them in facilities and make them take antipsychotic medicine.
Okay, so then what's the response to the fact that they're not doing that? Instead of putting the money to allow for those mental health facilities, we are putting the money into policing.
There needs to be some coercion to it. It can't just be voluntary. You can't. There needs to be more, like, actually putting them in these places. Doesn't have to be prison, but we can't. It can't just be left to people who are suffering, who are drug addicted, who are violent, who are thrashing, who are like. If you see people on the street, I'm not comfortable just letting them have thrashing violently,
we have to stop,
psychotically.
First of all, we have to stop using these individual outliers, some of the most extreme cases, to be representative of, one, everybody is in the criminal system, but two, representative of everybody with mental health issues, that one, period, with mental health issues, but two, people with mental health issues that end up in the criminal system, because they are not all the case you see on the post or highlighted there. That's just not the truth. And if we keep talking about mental health, people with mental health issues as though they are an entirely separate entity, they are different from us, that's why we end up with a society that others them and is not particularly concerned or enthusiastic about helping them, because we've already dehumanized these people and disregarded them. So I think to be mindful of that.
Gotta leave it there. We'll have more Rising right after this.